massive, massive news right here is what we're going to be talking about next.
Breaking
news. JJ Watt has officially retired. And
it's a sad day in the NFL.
Man, it's a sad day. I think JJ Watt is one of the best players to ever touch the football field, both on and off the field, because he is a monster on the field. He only played 11 seasons, and a good number of those he didn't play much. Like, you can see several years there. 2016 played 3 games, 2017 played 5 games, 2019 played 8 games, 2021 played 7 games, and then the rest he played the full season. But to have only played for like 9.5 seasons of like full games, basically 8-9 seasons, to get 111.5 sacks is insane, and to have 2 seasons with 20 plus sacks is insane. To have multiple interceptions and multiple pick sixes as a defensive lineman is insane. His 2014 season is the biggest one to talk about. 20.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries. He had a pick 6, and he had 5 total touchdowns. As a defensive lineman, he had 20 plus sacks and 5 touchdowns, because I don't know if you guys know this, but he was a tight end in college. So he can catch the ball and he can bulldoze some human. I mean, he's a giant. He is a giant human being. He can just bulldoze people. So they threw him out on the offense a couple times there, and to get 20.5 sacks and 5 touchdowns in one season is extremely impressive. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers who don't even get 5 touchdowns in a season, but for a defensive lineman to do so, 2014 he was second place in MVP voting, losing to Aaron Rodgers, who had his first MVP season with 38 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Great season for Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but it would have been amazing to see JJ Watt get that there. We were talking before we recorded about the MVP and kind of how we feel about it being a QB award versus an award that other people can get. And I kind of made the argument that it's a quarterback award because quarterbacks are oftentimes the most valuable player on the football field. Like, if you remove any one player from a team, if quarterback is going to be the most impactful. I think this is one of those rare occasions where J.J. Watt probably should have won it, because Aaron Rodgers obviously is an amazing quarterback, but I think J.J. Watt made such a big impact because the Houston Texans had a positive record that season and made the playoffs, going 9-7, and that was on the back of JJ Watt. Nothing else on their team was worth noting. Maybe a couple players here and there were decent enough, but to get to average multiple sacks a game and to average half of a receiving touchdown every game as a defensive lineman, I mean, he put that team on their back and brought them to that. To the place they did. And of course they didn't win a Super Bowl or anything, but that's just one guy who managed to do that. And it was funny because his whole story starts going into the draft, getting drafted 11th overall, and everyone booed. No one wanted him on their team in the Texans fan base. No one did. And his 2011 season, he really didn't have the great of a season. 5.5 sacks. You know, it's kind of whatever. 2 fumble recoveries, but no forced fumbles. It's kind of like, You know, it's like, it's not a horrible season for a rookie, but based on what he was supposed to do, people didn't really like him. And he told stories before about, his coaching staff getting on to him for like, hey, why aren't you getting pressure here when you very easily can? And he talked about he just kind of flipped a switch and he was like, you know what? I'm a guy who has my own style of play. I'm just going to play the way I want to, basically, instead of the way they're telling me to, and see how it works. And then he goes on and next season gets 20.5 sacks. And then the next season gets 10.5. Next season gets 20.5. Next season gets 17.5. And he just goes on a tear. 2018 gets 16 sacks. This season so far he's at 9.5 sacks, and the season's not over yet, which I think it's kind of unclear if he's going to be playing the last 2 games of the season or not. I think he's planning to, but either way, probably going to hit double digits in sacks this season if he plays the whole season. If not, then it's because he didn't play the whole season. But he's been a monster from start to finish, only playing 11 seasons and making such an impact as he did. And, that's just the on-the-field stuff is extremely impressive, coming that close in MVP voting. I think he's the only defensive player in the last decade that deserved it. You can make a case for Aaron Donald maybe, but I don't think Aaron Donald made as much of an impact any of his seasons as J.J. Watt did in the 2014 season specifically, because they had other pieces on that. Not to take away anything from Aaron Donald, but there was other people on that team that got them to where they were. It wasn't just him. But this season in particular was one where he was the reason that team had the success they did. But he's a great guy off the field. He won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for all the stuff he did off the field. He raised at one point $41.6 million for hurricane relief in Houston after they got hit by a hurricane. So he's just one of those class act guys that does as much on the field as he does off. He's one of the best defensive players of all time. There's people that have better stats than him, but they played a lot longer than he does, and I think that he is one of the best to ever play that position. I don't think many people are going to probably disagree with that, but played for the Texans and Cardinals and made an impact on both teams. And then, like I said, the off-the-field stuff is huge as well, so I just think all around one of the best guys to play the game. I mean, Pro Bowls nearly every year, All-Pro, I think 5 times, first-team All-Pro. He was just such an incredible player, and it's sad to see that his career kind of got wasted in Arizona, because he kind of went there thinking this is the team that can go on a run here, and they tried it and it didn't work out, and so now he's kind of retiring on a sad note on a losing season with the Cardinals. So, it kind of sucks for him, but he will go down as a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind. He is that guy. He's gonna get there, and he'll still be involved in the NFL and in his community outside of that, and especially with the Texans, he was such a big piece of that. He was involved with every business that the Texans organization was involved in. He did a lot of charity off the field. He had his own theme song whenever he got a sack. They would play "Turn Down for What" in the stadium, in the Texans stadium, whenever he'd get a sack. And he had his big entrance. He wore number 99, which it just feels like a powerful number for a defensive lineman. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going overboard here, but J.J. Watt is a class act guy, and I mean, you guys are welcome to give your thoughts on his retirement, because I've been rambling on for a few minutes now.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the man was an absolute poet of a football player. I mean, the way that he played the game was just inspirational to watch, and also just incredible too, because you never were safe as an opposing quarterback. If you went up against him, that your quarterback was probably going to be hurried at least 5 times and sacked at least once, which is crazy. I mean, no other, defensive lineman in the NFL can really say, something like that. Maybe his brother, TJ Watt. But, I mean, we were privileged to watch, how great of a player that, he is. Again, like you said, both on and off the field. And I don't really feel like, I can add much more to that. I think his greatness kind of speaks for himself. I remember watching, I think, a game in 2009 or 2010 of him when he played for Wisconsin going against Ohio State, and I think he had 3 or 4 sacks or something. And I think Russell Wilson might have been on the same team, possibly. I'm not sure, but they, were talking about him and, talking about how he was a legitimate NFL, draft prospect and whatever, and then, he goes to the NFL and does what he does. So respect to him, and wish him nothing but the best.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Gian? Give your thoughts on that.
Likewise. I mean, you guys have said it all. He was. I haven't watched football as long as you guys, but let me tell you, he made watching defenses fun, dude. Watching him just take down quarterbacks, swim through the O-line. He was a monster, an absolute beast. I just loved watching him play. It's sad to see him go. But shout out to him for all those good years and of watching him play and making those big upsets and changing the momentum in the game. You could really feel his presence on the field. So sad to see him go, but I wish him the best. Yeah,
and just the final notes. You know how Aaron Donald's been viewed, not so much this year, but 3 years previously, where he's been top 10 player in the NFL, defensive player of the year, scariest guy on the field. That's what J.J. Watt was from 2012 to 2015. Like I said, getting 20.5 sacks, 10.5, 20.5, and 17.5. He got nearly 80 sacks across 4 seasons, which is absolutely mind-blowing that he got that many sacks across that many years. And like Frank said, he was always rushing the quarter. If he was on the line and you were playing against him, you had to get that ball out quick, because he was going to get to you if you didn't. I mean, even if he wasn't getting a sack, he was getting enough pressure, taking an offensive lineman away from someone else to give someone else an opportunity. I mean, he was like whenever Calvin Johnson was playing and they had to throw 2 or 3 guys on him to cover him. That's how it is with J.J. Watt on the defensive line back in his prime. And the last thing I want to say about him is that he is one of the greatest trash talkers. I don't know if you guys have seen the compilations of him trash talking on the field, but it's fantastic. And then along with that, he's a great hype man, hyping up the team, great leader in the locker room. That's another big thing that I don't know how I forgot to mention on that, but typically it's a quarterback's job to hype the team up and get them ready for a big game, but J.J. Watt did that for any team he was on, and he was incredible at it. He knew exactly what to say to get people fired up and how to get people to get involved, and he was a very work hard now and work hard tomorrow, because it doesn't matter if we win or lose, there's more work to be done. And it makes sense coming from teams that have played horrible, but I mean, I think that if he had been on a Super Bowl team, he'd have the same mentality. Right after Super Bowl win, he's all right, we had our fun, now let's go do it again, get back to work for next year. He's just that guy. So props to him. I hope he has an incredible retirement. I hope they get him on commentating or something like that, which there's very few players that would be incredible. Yeah, there's very few players that I like that transfer to commentating after they retire, but I think J.J. Watt's one of those guys that could do it. I would especially listening to him commentate over some of the Steelers games and T.J. Watt in there getting 20 sacks a season. I mean, that's something that I hope to look forward to in the coming years. But take some time off, JJ. You've earned it. Take a couple years off and enjoy your family. He had a kid. His baby actually came to his last game. He posted on Twitter when he announced his retirement, and he said it was his baby's first NFL game and his last. And I was like, oh, man, that's so sad. But, props to him. Go have fun with your family. Hey, congrats to you, JJ Watt. Round of applause for you. Congrats on retirement.
Exactly.
We'll move on